Hello and welcome to this, our third quarterfinal here at the World Magic Cup. I'm Tim Willoughby here with Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we're going to head down to the feature match area because there's 6 guys just itching to play some more Magic. Welcome to this, our third quarterfinal here at the World Magic Cup. There we see the teams in the feature match area. On the left-hand side of our screen, that's Austria. On the right, there's Guatemala. Let's meet those teams.
Christoph Augenthaler,
Mckel Valentin,
Nicolas Aigner,
Sebastian Fiebietz.
Team Austria!
José Andrés Martínez.
Wilfredo Borquez.
Christopher Verula.
Fernando Juárez,
Team Guatemala!
Our teams, let's get right into the match now. We're going to start things off with our team captain from Austria, Valentin Mckel. He's up against Jose Andres. Bant Megamorph against Esper Control. Some interesting card choices in both of these lists, Randy Buehler.
Yeah, no, I think Valentin has been playing a deck like this in Standard for many, many months. Brad Nelson plays this deck, Patrick Dickmann plays this deck, Valentin Mckel. They've all had a lot of success at the Grand Prix level, so it makes sense that Austria would kind of bend their decks around setting this up. Austria, in particular, when you look at their decks, they have no red deck. Right, they don't have the Atarka red, the red-green landfall. There's nothing resembling that in their lineup. They're on Bant Megamorph, Mardu mid-range, Esper Dragon. So definitely a unique take on how to attack Unified Standard.
Yeah, and I guess it's worth pointing out, this is a Bant deck in game one, largely
it's
in
green-white Megamorph. Yeah. It has, like, what, Odd Disdainful Stroke in the main in terms of blue cards?
Yeah, out of the sideboard, a little bit more counter magic going on, but we see assorted expeditions here from Valentin Mckel as he sorts out his mana base in the early turns of the game. He's going to be looking to play an assortment of creatures, potentially a Houndback Walker on turn 2, get that one ticking up, beat down, but then he does have the option for a little bit of counter magic in there, which especially in games 2 and 3 could be a really big deal. We can see Andres cards in hand there. He's going to have a Jace on turn 2 if he wants it. And with a Houndback Walker coming into play on turn 2 for Valentin Mckel, I can definitely see the temptation to get Jace on board nice and early. Maybe get a cheeky block in, but certainly get some looting going.
Yeah, that can potentially segue nicely into his dig-through times, too. Not a lot else going on with Jose's draw.
Yeah, Jose Andres, he's Esper Control, but it's important to note he's not Esper Dragons. This is a list that's leaning a lot harder on the white elements and the Planeswalker elements of what Esper can do. So he's got Planar Outburst going on, he's got Ugin, he's got Narset Transcendent. There's
Nixilis.
Yeah, there's the potential for many ultimates in this particular matchup. So Mckel here potentially considering a Silk Wrap. Not too many creatures that can get targeted with it in this particular matchup, so there's no real reason to hold off on it.
Yeah, one of the reasons you play Silk Wrap is to deal with the turn 2 Jace.
As it stands, though, Dramoka's Command, another option, which would also mean that he gets to pump his Houndback Walker this turn.
Yeah, I think that he figures he'll have better applications for Dramoka's Command down the road, where Silk Wrap really doesn't do anything else in this matchup other than deal with Jace, so. Tempting as it was to drop a counter onto that Houndback Walker, it's not the best way to use his cards.
And Valentin Mckel declining the attack there, just playing a land and passing, meaning that he's got the option to pump that Houndback Walker. 1 point a swing, really not anything too special. Once the Houndback Walker gets to 2, 3, and then we can start talking.
Yeah, I still can't believe Guatemala got here. I mean, if you were with us yesterday, we had this very sort of almost weird situation in the final round of the Swiss where we were watching the match between Guatemala and Denmark got out to an early lead. Guatemala offered an intentional draw, which clinched top 8 for Denmark, but not for themselves, figuring they were definitely out with a loss, but with a draw, they could still make top 8 if they got help from the other match in their group.
Which they, of course, did, as we see them in the top 8 area.
That's why they're sitting here. Italy did them, or it wasn't Italy, but they managed to get the help that they needed in the other match. That sort of draw into crossing their fingers instead of just losing and going home worked out.
Yeah, and they, of course, realised to offer the draw early enough that Denmark were willing to accept it rather than simply beating them and potentially locking up a higher seed.
Exactly.
So there we see the Hangerback Walker ticking up there. Just a land go from Jose Andres S for control. Not necessarily a signal of anything too worrisome for the control deck. At this stage in the game, hitting land drops is basically the main place it wants to be, and holding up mana is a lot scarier than playing out many of the smaller things it can do.
Yeah, Jose's also got an utter end to deal with this Hangerback Walker eventually. So he's not super worried about the current board state. He doesn't have a whole lot else going on. He's got a cut. He's got a couple of dig through times is where he wants to go. So he'd love to be able to trade. Oh, this is nice for Valentin Mckel.
So that Gideon ally of Zendikar there. Anytime that you can have a creature that's not really a creature, it means that life's a little bit trickier for your control decks because they can't simply planar outburst to get rid of all your threats. Alternatively, yes, it can make all of Valentin Mckel's creatures bigger, and emblems another thing that, well, at the moment there's nothing in Magic that's getting rid of an emblem beyond starting a new game.
Yeah, the real issue for Jose Andres now is that his utter end is kind of overloaded. He probably has to point it at the Gideon now before he falls too far behind. But then he doesn't have an elegant answer to Hangerback Walker.
You can see there Jose Andres in discussion with team coach for this match, Fernando Jose Juarez Oliva. 4 members on the Guatemalan team, only 3 of them with decks in their hands. But Jose has had plenty of chance to play at other points in this tournament. Always 3 players at the tables, but the 4th one able to give advice. And as other matches finish, we may well see more of the Guatemalan team coming across to provide just little thoughts on various plays as and when needed.
It feels like these next couple turns are going to go a long way toward determining this first game. Valentin Mckel's got a Wingmate Rock that he can follow up with. He can potentially flood a number of threats onto the board, but he doesn't want to leave himself too vulnerable to a sweeper, and he has to figure out what he wants to play around. He may be in a situation where he doesn't have enough resources to play around everything. So, I mean, you sometimes just go for the Wingmate Rock, even knowing that you leave yourself vulnerable to a sweeper because you figure you can't beat the sweeper anyway. I don't know if we're there yet.
So that's an uptick on Gideon here. So a big swing. Valentin Mckel choosing to get the damage in while he can for now.
Wow, this utter end now, though, is even more tempting. Yeah. Jose does go for the utter end on the Gideon. So this is only 4 damage. And now Valentin, he may be priced into this just Wingmate Rock, cross my fingers, hope you don't have a planar outburst. 2 planar outbursts in Andre's list, is that it?
That's correct, yes.
Just the 2. He's nowhere near Ugin mana, so... I mean, it's scary. If you're Valentin Mckel and you play this Wingmate Rock here, I mean, you're down to, what, 2 Thopters if Jose does, in fact, have a planar outburst? I think that might be the right line, though. How are you winning this game through a planar outburst?
Yeah, I mean, once you've got the Wingmate Rock on the board, assuming that you can get at least 1 chunky swing in, then the game is almost sewn up in terms of damage. So there it comes, along with the bird, thanks to the raid trigger.
Yeah, this is what, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 damage next turn if Jose Andres can't do anything about it. He draws an utter end. So he's got an utter end and a murderous cut.
I mean, they're all helpful, but yeah, he's basically going to have to do something here. I mean, we know that there's Dramoka's Command in Valentin Mckel's hand. In principle, that's an extra point if you can find a second mode for it that's going to work out.
Oh, there's no 5th land for Jose. Wow. I was thinking utter end plus murderous cut could actually go a decent step towards stabilizing this board. He could at least buy himself several turns, but with no 5th land, he can either utter end or murderous cut.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about a big attack here is at some point you reach a point where a planar outburst, that Hangerback Walker still leaves behind enough tokens that it's potentially lethal even after a sweeper.
Wow, and there's now a replacement Wingmate Rock in Valentin's hand. Yeah, I like utter end on the Hangerback. That makes sense.
It certainly leaves the door open for your sweepers being more relevant.
Precisely. 3, 6, 8, though.
19.
Jose down to 4. Yeah, and at this point, Valentin is not going to commit more to the board.
Already Valentin's going to be thinking, well, after sideboarding, this match is broadly kind of similar, only I have counter magic for your counter magic.
5th land finally for Jose Andres. But he does not have the sweeper that he needs. Dig Through Time is a 4-mana spell that turns off Murderous Cut. That's not going to get the job done. Murderous Cut by itself is not enough to stay alive.
I mean, Jose Andres doing a good Hollywood job here on at least forcing Valentin to think through what might be coming, but ultimately, there's the sweeping up of cards. Game 1 to Austria and Valentin Mckel here on our first match. We're going to get a chance to see plenty more Magic soon enough, but first, these messages.
Outfit your Magic collection with the newest Battle for Zendikar accessories from Ultra Pro. You can see the full array of card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios in your favorite Magic artwork at ultrapro.com.
Watch the best players in the world battle on Magic's biggest stage. Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch starts February 5th in Atlanta, Georgia, featuring Modern and Oath of the Gatewatch Booster Draft. Watch all 3 days streamed live on twitch.tv/magic.
Hello and welcome back to this, the third quarterfinal here at the World Magic Cup. We have Austria versus Guatemala. Austria, in our main match that we've just seen, already up 1 game on table A. We're going to get a chance to jump across to one of our other tables here, and we get to see Nicholas Aigner with Esper Dragons on the left of our screen against Christopher Verula with Red-Green Landfall. Not quite the same as Ataka Red, but close enough that it certainly falls into the same general plan.
Where are the rest of Aigner's lands?
I'm sure he feels kind of the same way. It's possible that there's been the likes of an Ataka's command to put a land into play for Christopher Verula.
All right.
But I would assume that Aigner here a little bit shorter on lands than he really wants. We've just heard that, in fact, there was a mulligan to 5 for Aigner, and I'm guessing that even if he kept a 1-lander, yeah, he's not drawn well this game.
No, I mean, Jace looted his way all the way up to the point where he could flip, and still only 2 lands for Nicholas Aigner.
Plenty of morphs here coming from the Red-Green Landfall deck.
I mean, he's alive on turn, what, 6? That's...
just barely.
Yeah, not alive any longer.
And we're going to get a chance to... It sounds like we might have just had a result from table B as well.
Oh, yeah?
Scalps falling thick and fast. So on table B, we have Sebastian Fiebietz against Wilfredo Borquez, and I believe that was a win for Austria there. So currently, as all 3 matches... Oh,
no, it sounds like Wilfredo won.
So in spite of Valentin Mckel's win on table A, which we got a chance to see mere moments ago, it is currently a lead for Guatemala as they go to sideboarding.
They won 2 out of 3 game 1s.
I mean...
And that was being on the draw in all 3 of those as well.
Yeah.
Austria is the higher seed here, so Austria got to choose play draw.
We are going to get to watch a different match, though, for our second game here. We are going to stay with the Landfall versus Esper control matchup. The Landfall deck, an interesting one to me, because on the face of things, you can very much just say, well, this is kind of Ataka Red. We've got these Ataka's commands. We've got these aggressive monsters, Teemo, Battle Rage, and Become Immense going on. But slightly more in the way of creatures, a little bit lighter on burn, but those creatures can really pack a punch.
And more lands, too, crucially. In order, you wind up with, I think, 4 forests in this list. Yeah, 4 forests. Christopher Verula has Den Protectors, is what you get as sort of... That's what you get to play with. The reason you put 4 forests in the deck, the reason you go to 24 total is that you get to play with Den Protectors now. Oh, by the way, you also get Scythe Leopard, Snapping Gnarlid.
Okay, but we can have a look at the way that the players are sideboarding now. So Nicholas Aigner, he's on Esper control. Let's have a look at his sideboard and how he might go about doing things. We'll just see if we can bring that up for you here.
Not much of a game.
Huh?
Not much of a game.
Yeah, not much.
Sideboarding, certainly a place where an Esper Dragons deck does get the ability to customize itself.
Yeah, we can see here he's got a few nice options available. A lot of the Esper decks running Monastery Mentor in the sideboard, both as a way of winning faster, but also potentially building up a board. The Arishin Cleric has to be the first port of call here for this deck, though.
Yeah, it's good. It is not as good versus red-green landfall as it is versus the Atarka red. That 1/3, you know what? Snapping Gnarlid can just attack through that, and it's not a problem. You don't wind up with as many sort of one-toughness creatures in the red-green landfall deck. There's no Hordling Outburst. There's no Dragon Fodder. There's nothing that matches up really badly against a 1/3, so it's another reason to play red-green landfall is that you're not nearly as vulnerable to Arishin Cleric. Surge of Righteousness is the other one. Like, if you're pointing your Temur Battle Rage, Become Immense combo at a green creature, it's not going to die to Surge of Righteousness.
Very cool. An interesting variation on a well-established deck that means that some of these sideboard options potentially not quite as exciting.
They're still coming in. They're still going to help.
Virulent Plague, is it as good against this version? I mean,
are
there Hordling Outbursts at all
There's
in this
actual
list?
0 token creatures in this version. So not coming in at all.
Meanwhile, when we can see out of the sideboard, there's the potential for a few tokens from the Guatemalan side of the table. But
fair enough, you got me.
Also, you got the likes of Outpost Siege to just say, if this game's going to go super long, I'm going to try not to get too outcarded here.
Yeah, there's a lot of differing opinions about how to sideboard one of these red-green decks, whether it's Atarka Red or the Landfall version. You've got this issue of, okay, my opponent is going to bring in every removal spell they can get their hands on in order to stop me from combo killing them. So how do you want to react to that? Do you want to go Outpost Siege, slow your deck down, but have this, source of mid-game sort of grindy card advantage? Or are you saying, well, look, this is the scariest thing going on in Standard right now is the fact that I can just kill somebody from 16, 20 life. Why would I take that out of my deck? So you get this interesting dance sometimes in the sideboarding.
And given that this is a top 8 match, both of these players, they do have each other's full deck lists.
True.
So this dance gets a whole bunch of extra levels to it almost, where for Nicholas Aigner, he has to say, well, how far do I think that my opponent's going to go? Am I going to use that to alter either the way that I sideboard or indeed the way that I play out my games?
Agreed. I certainly keep my combo in if I'm Christopher Verula here. I think that Arishin Cleric does not scare me. It's not like there's a bunch of point removal in Aigner's sideboard. Surge of Righteousness, which can't kill my green creatures anyway. I would not be dramatically modifying my my red-green deck if I was Christopher Verula.
Yeah, I like this deck a lot. I mean, I think one thing that's worth saying about this deck, which for Team Unified Constructed is a little scary, it does suck up an awful lot of fetch lands. This has got 12 fetch lands between Bloodstained Mire, Windswept Heath, and Wooded Foothills.
Wait. Don't forget the Evolving Wilds.
The one of Evolving
13
Wilds.
fetch lands.
Yeah, but that does put a little bit of pressure on the other decks that you're running in this Team Unified Constructed.
Yeah, it's a great point.
The players now.
So they built Esper Control and Black-Red Dragons with only 8 fetch lands total between them because they let this one have 12.
And all of those 8 fetch lands are in Jose Andres' deck. We see Guatemala have used every single one of the Kanzatake fetch lands between their 3 decks. Not necessarily an uncommon story, but I don't know that you would normally expect to see this many.
Yeah, I guess that's why they're Black-Red Dragons in Wilfredo Borquez's hands, not Mardu, because there were no fetch lands left.
Quite possibly, but here we can see some opening hands being drawn. We'll get a chance to find out soon enough whether or not these are keepers. Christopher Verula there, the champion of Team Guatemala.
Yeah, 3 total Pro Tours worth of experience between the 4 of them. He's got 2 of them, and he's got that 17th place finish, which is where the Pro points came from that got him the captaincy.
Looks like things kicking off here. Just the tap land there, the Prairie Stream for Nicholas Aigner, and immediately Side Leopard coming down for Christopher Verula.
Yeah, you see the Surge of Righteousness green creature interaction right away. Funny.
Couple of copies of Jace, though, in hand for Aigner, and the fact that he's got lands and spells as much as anything else is going to leave him sort of fairly happy.
True. Although 2 lands, he hasn't actually turned a profit on his game 1. Or maybe, or is that 3? Yeah, 1 left in hand after these 2. So Nicholas Aigner going to be able to play much better than last time.
There we see Side Leopard. I think after the original Zendikar Landfall Creatures, we were a little bit spoiled in some respects.
Sure.
When I first saw Side Leopard, maybe not quite as excited as I was about the likes of some of the options that were available the first time round, but actually a very creditable threat in there, and it's going to be able to attack for 2 on turn 2, which is nothing to sneeze at. potentially more. So here comes Jace. Unlikely to be a blocker on turn 2, it must be said. Aigner quick to mark his life total down at 17. He's quite happy not to have to worry about that. And an Abbot of Carol keep here for no profit. Sad to see an outpost siege go, but
There's actually one in his hand, so you're, I think, happy to see the second one go.
yeah, I mean, this is a deck that can end up with a fair amount of lands in play. But yeah, the second one, you're gonna be hard pushed to be casting 3 spells a turn. There we see the 2-1 with prowess. Also a source of card advantage. The red decks now, they've found their own little ways of getting extra cards to play. But we have a real game here as Aigner hitting his land drops.
I do like Christopher running out the Abbot on turn 2. I think people are afraid to do that a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's an efficient prowess creature, even if you ignore all of that extra text.
2-1 prowess for 2 is totally fine. I mean, face up Den Protector is another line you'll see from this deck, which is often correct. You just you want to get creatures down, you want to impact the board. And here's Swift Spear and a fetch land.
Yeah, worth noting that this not a deck noted for its ability to burn people out with spells. It's all about attacking with creatures, so getting them on the board, very important indeed. Everybody's coming in, and every spell here is going to be a lot of prowess triggers. And with a Windswept Teeth, even the Size Leopard, there's lots of damage being threatened here that is not currently being realized.
There is an Atarka's Command in Verula's hand.
Crikey.
Windswept Heath can get Cinderglade since he led with 2 basics. Can get Cinderglade untapped. Yeah, Verula is able to dump his hand pretty effectively for a lot of damage over these first 3-4 turns, and then he'll have an Outpost Siege that he can follow up with. In a pretty nice spot.
You can see Niklas Aigner there just conferring with Christoph Alcantara, making sure that they make the right decision here.
Are they contemplating a block with Jace? Or just trying to figure out what to do with Surge of Righteousness? Getting a bit more information before they play any spells, which kind of makes sense. There we see Jace. It's going to take a little while for Jace to flip into a Planeswalker. Currently, just the 2 cards in the graveyard, but when he does, oh boy. Yeah, so here's Surge of Righteousness pointed at Abbott. Now, Christopher knows what Nicholas is up to. Gets to decide how he wants to deploy the rest of his hand. Probably wants to Atarka's Command and fizzle the 2 life gain. He'll wind up kind of like he wants 3 modes on Atarka's Command is what he really wants here.
Don't we all? I mean, he even has the potential to put extra lands in play if he really wants to.
Oh yeah,
all of the modes do good things in this particular deck. But I mean, fizzling the life gain or pumping his team is kind of a wash.
Yeah, the 3 damage is better than with all of those. There's multiple ways to deal 2 damage here. I do think you want to spend the mana though. Like he wants to Atarka's Command one way or the other.
Yeah.
And you're right. No life gain is effectively 2 damage. Pump my team is effectively 2 damage. Spend those 2 mana, spend that card, deal 5, and
yeah, jog on.
see what happens before we get to next turn.
I must admit, the first time I cast Atarka's Command in this particular deck and put a land into play, my opponent had to reread the card because it's not a mode that gets used in many other builds with Atarka.
Hey, that was the winning play in the Super League Championship. Paul Rietzel put an extra land into play to deal Xaxes with landfall creatures.
And when you put in a fetch land, ooh boy.
Yeah, it was. That's what it was. He put a fetch land into play, and that worked out better than the other modes.
So Aigner dropping to 14 here. Oh, apologies there, 16 life. Sorry about that. Now, from Aigner's side of things not actually looking as bad as they could do. There's not too many creatures on the board. He's not taken a crazy amount of damage just yet. I mean, I guess at some point fairly soon he's going to need to do something to majorly impact the board, because these creatures are going to keep chipping in every turn. And with a second landfall creature to draw there, any fetch lands get more and more scary with each draw, and we know that there's plenty of them in Christopher Verula's deck.
I think this is an Abbott turn.
It feels like a safe turn for an Abbott. If you hit a land, you can play it and do useful things with it. If you don't, then you've got other good options.
Right, and he had a land in his hand he could have played so that he could play any 2-mana spells. Gets a little bit of value here. Now, he's essentially said to Nicholas Aigner, all right, find a sweeper, or my creatures are just going to kill you. Now, we know that Aigner does, in fact, have a Crux of Fate in his hand, so he can sweep the board next turn. Then he can get Jace flipped into Planeswalker form.
Yeah, this looks like a turn to me where Jace might well prove to be a blocker, because now Jace can block, activate, flip.
Yeah.
And while there is a fair amount of trample potentially in the draws from red-green landfall, this particular draw does not have any trample going on.
Not a lot of damage going to get through this turn. It's funny. Aigner could block the guaranteed 2 from the side leopard, or he could block Monastery Swiftspear, because whatever spells Verula might have are going to create prowess triggers. We know there actually aren't any instants here.
Yeah, and it looks like Aigner has sniffed it out. He's blocking the Scythe Leopard.
Yeah, I mean, he only turns a profit by blocking Swiftspear if there's 2 spells, so
yeah,
I think Side Leopard is the right play. And then obviously he's going to need to loot and turn Jace into a Planeswalker. Verula's hand is in an interesting spot where the most mana efficient thing he can do is add Snapping Gnarlid to the board and have 4, say go with 4 creatures in play. But if that's how Verula plays it, he gets destroyed by Crux of Fate. Like, that sweeper is a 4-for-1.
Yeah, definitely a rough spot here, and we'll get a good chance to find out exactly how disciplined Christopher Verula's play is here, because there's an argument to say that with 3 creatures on the board, he's already in a pretty solid spot. He doesn't need that 4th one. To me, it was a big leveling up moment when I was sort of learning as a player, the moment that you sort of say, I don't need to cast any more spells, I can just kind of sit on what I've got.
Take one.
Yep.
Well, we've got our first match update of a match down. This is Austria's first full match win. Valentin Mckel, we knew that he was experienced with Bant Megamorph. He has deployed that experience perfectly. He has won his match up against Jose Andres Esper Control.
Wow.
So currently, we have Austria leading 1-0 in the series.
Wow, Aigner gets to dig through time here too.
Oof.
Got to 5 cards just long enough to flip Jace. Now he gets to dig through time, untap, Crux. Now the problem for Nicholas Aigner, he's on 7 life. He's going to be tapping out for Crux of Fate on his next turn, crossing his fingers. If he gets to untap after that, he should just win the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of thinking through what draws Christopher Verula might be looking for during that tapped out moment, and something like Sarkhan would be ideal if he brought it in.
Yeah, I mean, the thing Aigner's worried about is just, you know, Swift Spear into Become Immense, something along those lines would kill him. Verula does not have those cards in his hand, though. Verula's going to get to stick an Outpost Siege. And then, I don't know if that Outpost Siege can win this versus a Jace and a full grip. We'll see.
Verula did pass without playing the extra Gnarlid, so
Right.
that's another option if he's got a land to be able to cast 2 spells next turn after the sweeper. And basically, the red-green landfall deck wants to try and keep up enough consistent pressure that the Esper deck can't simply just sit back and take its time about things. With Jace on the board, of course, the first Crux of Fate is also the second Crux of Fate.
I mean, Aigner does have an ultimate price and an Arishing Cleric. I mean, he could Sounds like a Dragon Lord Ojutai. I mean, if he's super worried about a combo kill, you could leave up Ultimate Price. That said, it has to be a combo kill onto a haste creature. I think tap out for Crux of Fate is the right line here. But it's not the only available one for sure.
Yeah, and this is something I'm sure that both the Austrian players that are discussing this are well aware of. Nicholas Aigner, he's been around the block a few times. Actually had multiple great finishes at his home GP Vienna. That where I first met him. I think he may have won GP Vienna twice. He's certainly put in some deep finishes there.
I thought he only had one Grand Prix win, but I can look it up. He's got 3 Grand Prix top 8s, including a win.
Yeah, it may be that he top 8'd the second Vienna and won the first one, but yeah, he certainly a very, very strong player, and indeed playing blue-black on at least one of those occasions.
Aigner does sweep the board with the Crux of Fate. Yeah, this is very much across your fingers. Hope you live long enough to untap. I mean, Outpost Siege is not good news for the Esper Dragons player, but I still think it results in a sigh of relief. That's your big finish. All right, you spend 4 mana on that. Doesn't impact the board yet.
Yeah, Nicholas Aigner thinking, I'm the one that should be doing things that are not impacting the board and getting me lots of cards. And no great surprises there that Khan's the option chosen. There are times for the choosing dragons on Outpost Siege, but those times are slightly fewer and further between.
Aigner taps out again, this time for, well, almost, more or less taps out. Let's get down to the Flooded Strand.
Well, Arc Lightning was the card revealed to the Khan's ability on Outpost Siege, so until the end of turn, that's a card available for Christopher Verula to play.
Sure. Drop. Yeah, I mean, you just pointed at Aigner's face. I don't think you can afford to fight Jace. I think you just drop him from 7 to 4. Hope you can stitch together some more burn spells. Finish the game off that way.
And this is where starting to cast Arashing Cleric gets a little little scarier for Verula, because effectively that's saying, I've got a 1/3 body, and I kind of did counter that Arc Lightning, even though I did it after the fact.
Here's the Snapping Gnarlid from before. Solid turn for Christopher Verula.
Yeah, no arguments here on that one.
One card?
Goes ahead and plays the land now. Does he have one left in his hand? Yeah, he does still have a fetch land, actually. But I mean, Outpost Siege makes him want to have a bunch of land in place, so he can be doing multiple things per turn.
Yeah, there are times for sandbagging a few extra cards in hand for these sorts of decks, just so that they can threaten the combo, even if they don't necessarily have it all going on. These are not those times, though. The first big swing from Ojutai. No fear from Nicholas Aigner here.
Oh, Foul Tongue Invocation, too. Kill a creature and gain 4 life. Not a lot of hesitation. That seems like the obvious choice. It's fun. On the one hand, it feels like Esper is just turning the corner here now. On the other hand, the game's over in 3 turns from the Ojutai attacks.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really like about the Esper Dragons list is that once it starts winning, it actually does close things out pretty fast.
Bloodstained Mire joins the pile of fetch lands that Aigner will only crack if he needs to.
And doubles his life with Foul Tongue Invocation. It's funny, as much as the likes of Surge of Righteousness were brought in by Nicholas Aigner, in some respects, Foul Tongue Invocation doing a better job for him in every respect.
Yeah. Sure looks like we're going to game 3 in this match. Verula did take the first one, so Guatemala is still very live.
Yeah, and do not forget that even though Valentin Mckel has won his match, the most recent information we have is that in our 3rd match that's going on right now between Wilfredo Borquez and Sebastian Fiebietz, it is the Guatemalan who is leading. So hope certainly still alive for all you folks in Guatemala back home watching.
Yeah, sounds like they're still in game 2 over there.
I'm looking forward to seeing some of that one, I must admit. I kind of like the red-black dragons things that are going on in this tournament.
Take the trigger.
Yep.
And Another Arishin Cleric for Nicholas Aigner.
Yeah, another hit from Ojtai, another Arishin Cleric.
Yeah, the life total's moving in exactly the opposite direction that Christopher Verula will be looking for here. That one a preemptive counter on the next Dark Lightning. And Jace just casually ticking up here. No need to flash anything back just yet, but that Faltung Invocation, Crux of Fate, all there ready to go as and when needed. And Christopher Verula's seen enough. Not strictly dead on the next turn, I don't think, but functionally,
oh yeah,
he wasn't doing a whole lot there. So that a win for Austria there, keeping things interesting. And we're going to get a chance to see a little bit of our third matchup, which we've not had a chance to really catch on camera much thus far, just due to the way that the games fell. On the left of our screen, that's Sebastian Fiebietz. He's playing Mardu mid-range. So plenty of dragons going on there. On the other side of things, Wilfredo Borquez, well, he's just black-red dragons. Already with Obnixilis in play, along with the Hangerback Walker. And for the Austrian side of the table, we've got a slightly larger Hangerback Walker and Abbot of Carol Keep.
Yeah, but Borquez, his mana base, I mean, 6 Mountain, 6 Swamp, 4 Nomad Outpost, 4 Smoldering Marsh, 2 Haven of the Spirit Dragon, 3 Bloodfell Caves, 0 fetch lands. That is how they were able to help their other decks get all the mana they needed. The 2-color black-red deck that just didn't need any of them.
What a team player.
Yeah.
I think that was the dream for an awful lot of teams when they were trying to come up with decks for this format is, can anyone build a deck that's truly competitive without having to worry about the fetch land issue? Obnixilis reignited there, we can see on screen. Currently largely a source of extra cards, but it can just destroy creatures here and there as needed. Every now and again, it's certainly something you need to look into. And with 3 Thopter tokens in play, Wilfredo Borquez, he has plenty of blockers, or indeed some relatively tricky to deal with attackers right now, because Sebastian Fiebietz does not have any flyers in play as it stands. An extra card there for the Guatemalan.
Wow, Fiebietz only used 2 Bloodstained Mires, is what I'm seeing in this list.
He's got some Flooded Strands also.
Ah, he's got the Flooded Strands, I see. Wait, he does?
Oh, sorry.
No, he doesn't.
My apologies, yeah.
He's got an Evolving Wilds. But yeah, Nomad Outpost, Shambling Vent are the fixers here. Caves of Koilos.
Yeah, I mean...
Battlefield Forge, he's pain land based.
Yeah, Brian David Marshall said that he felt like the Crackling Doom could be the difference here, and I think that might well be true, but it might be that actually the mana requirements to actually get to that Crackling Doom could also be the difference, because there's a lot of pain lands in that list.
A lot of pain lands.
The pain lands, of course, potentially getting a bit of a bump with Oath of the Gatewatch now that we have found out about the colorless mana requirements for some cards, because they do tap for C.
That's a good point.
No, but Outpost there for Wilfredo Borquez. We know that he doesn't actually have any white cards to cast with it, but at the same time, it's a great black-red land.
True story.
There is Crackling Doom and Pia and Kiran Nallar in Sebastian Fiala-Ibitz's hand. Considering his plays here with team captain Valentin Mckel providing a little bit of extra advice also.
Hangerback is attacking Obnixilis here.
And a Murderous Cut says it's good, but it's not the one.
And down goes Abbott.
And Borquez here with 2 copies of Radiant Flames along with Draconic Roar. And that one reason to have the Nomadic Outpost there, the extra color of mana potentially useful for that.
Nice. So Hangerback knocks Obnixilis down to 1, where Crackling Doom can potentially finish it off.
Nein, kann nur für 2. Nein, hat das Karte. Kann 1 für 3, 1 für 2 machen. Dementsprechend ist Dings nicht so stark. Und der kann über
It seems like it's going to be quite tricky to keep Obnixus around too much longer with Pierre and Kieran and Nalara also looming.
Ich meine, du kannst es besser.
Fiebietz has to be worried about being down to 7 life, too. He's playing against a red deck. All right, here is the Crackling Tomb.
Redirects.
Planeswalker down.
2 cards.
Does not play Pia and Kieran. Because he knows there's potentially Radiant Flames in his opponent's deck. We know they're actually in his hand.
Combat.
Yeah, right now it's a straightforward attacking plan for Borquez, but he's got options. And there is a dragon in his graveyard, I believe, up top there.
Yeah.
And Haven and the Spirit Dragon threaten to get it back at some point.
Which could turn on the Draconic Roar, too.
Ich glaube, das ist besser, wenn wir.
Not currently a dragon for Draconic Roar. Fiebietz at 5. This is pretty tight and interesting the way this game's playing out.
Yeah, I think that that's the gold card at the top of the graveyard. Am I reading that one rightly?
For Borquez?
Yeah, it could be a Kolaghan.
I think it's Kolaghan's card.
Ah, okay.
I do not actually see a dragon in his yard. Or wait, is the third one down? Is it P and Kieran?
It may be that I was mistaken on that one there. Graveyard a little bit smushed up, but we'll see soon enough. And Hangerback Walker
Goes to 4, and yeah, Sebastian looked across to wait and see. Does this resolve? It did. Draconic Roar could have killed it as a response, and then Radiant Flames could, in theory, have cleaned up, but that is not really the way Wilfredo wants to play this game. He's looking at those last 5 points of life. That's what he cares about right now.
Oh, nein, leg einfach die.
He's got a couple Thopters he's ready to attack with. Here, though, Mom and Dad.
and the kids. In this case, the Thopter tokens.
Well,
Chandra did not come along.
yeah.
But, I mean, in principle here, if you really felt like he had to, Borquez can even Draconic Roar plus the first of the 2 copies of Radiant Flames in his hand, then the second Radiant Flames for a cleanup.
Yeah, suddenly dealing with those last 5 has gotten a lot trickier. He's been carefully not killing the hanger back so that he could attack with his own Thopters, but...
Yeah, that plan may no longer be realistic.
So how do you play it?
The entirety of Team Guatemala here checking out what's going on. Plenty to think about. We can see in the background there Nicholas Aigner now also watching from the Austrian side of things. That's one of the cool things about team play. I always like playing with my friends around. I know that some people can get a little bit sort of spooked by being watched while they play, but you know what, guys? You're being watched by a lot more people than are just at that table at this point.
7 total dragons in Wilfredo Borquez's deck, by the way. 3 Kolaghan's, 4 Thunderbreak regions. That's assuming he didn't change that number the way with sideboarding. All right, so he's going to attack with his Thopters into the enemy Thopters.
Yeah, this is the turn that Pierre and Kieran Nalar can only sacrifice 1 artifact to deal damage. Once Sebastian Fiebietz gets to untap, though, well, 9 lands means that those artifacts can deal quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, those blocks seem pretty straightforward. All the Thopters annihilate. Now what? Radiant Flames just to kill the Elder Nalars?
Black, red, white.
Yes. Hangerback gets to hang out as a 4/4?
Go.
Yes.
Apparently so. Yeah, Borquez is not particularly keen to leave himself empty-handed on an empty board when his opponent still has cards in hand.
And he's just, if Colligan comes off the top, it does everything for Wilfredo. That's what he's thinking. He's just trying to summon Colligan to the top of his deck. It's not like Sebastian has much else going on, right? He's had Bloodstained Mire in his hand when he untapped. Has now drawn a Wild Slash. I mean, the Hangerback is what, a 4-turn clock?
Yeah, there's definitely time for Borquez here, even with Shambling Vent going on.
Shambling Vent. Okay, the Shambling Vent is finally going to get that Draconic Roar. No dragon, just the 3 damage.
And the important bit there is he's kept the door open for Colligan, because 5 life, very different to 7.
Right. Land off the top. Sebastian Fiebietz hoping he can force a game 3 in this match.
Yep.
Guatemala would love to hang a W on the board.
Absolutely.
Even things up in the overall team match.
Yeah, I mean, they know that they have one more match, assuming that they can get out of this one.
Transgress the mind. There goes that Radiant Flames. It wasn't doing a whole lot anyway.
And those lands, well, they're probably going to get put into play fairly soon because they're not doing anything in hand anymore.
Yeah, they're defending against Colligan's command.
Cards. 2.
Fiery Impulse the draw. Spell Mastery well achieved, but not going to be enough to off any of the creatures on this board because the only creature on this board right now is a Hangerback Walker stocked with 4 potential Thopters.
Sebastian's played this game well since we got here. I mean, it was tricky to navigate what was going on, but he's gotten himself to a position where, you know, he was down to his last couple points of life against an opponent that had several cards in their hand. And now he's 2 attacks with this Hangerback away from sending us to game 3.
You can see there Valentin Mckel in the background, nervously shuffling tokens. A lot of players just they're so much more comfortable with cards in their hand that even when they're not playing, they can't help but try and hold a grip. So an Abbot of Carol Keep, potentially forcing the issue. On top, just a Caver's Kolos. I mean, you'll play it.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than drawing the Caves next turn, that's for sure.
A thumbs up from Wilfredo, signaling that he's happy with it. I'm not entirely sure that he really was happy taking another.
I like
4
the
there.
Abbots in Sebastian's deck. I mean, that's not a card that you see a ton of in Marty Dragons. And for example, you know, Wilfredo, only 2 colors, black-red, does not have Abbots in his list.
Yeah, he had a bit of a fight for Abbots with the red-green Landfall deck.
Right. That's a good point.
Trace Clause. No.
Wow.
All right. Well, that one's going to be going to a game 3. We have 2 game 3s. If Austria wins either of them, congratulations to them, they're through. For Guatemala, though, it's time to put up or head home because, yeah, just both of these games now, they must win.
Wouldn't want it any other way. A couple of
And why
game 3s
not?
to determine the quarterfinal.
And it looks like the game 3 that we're going to kick off with first is between our team captain from Guatemala, that being Christopher Verula, up against Nicholas Aigner there. We can see the Austrian team stats, 33 Pro Tours, 130 GPs, 10 GP top 8s. Definitely a team to watch out for. I mean, they've got a fairly long and storied history in international Magic, and Valentin Mckel, the leader of the team this year, he's been having a fantastic year.
Yeah, 2 Grand Prix champions on the Austrian team, and somehow Valentin Mckel's not one of them. 6 top 8s, though. He's doing all right for himself.
Meanwhile, Guatemala, without the same level of Pro Tour and Grand Prix experience just yet, but at the same time, hard to take away from exactly what both Christopher Verula did just at the last Pro Tour, or indeed how well they've done in this tournament.
We have more than double that number of PTs in Atlanta. 3 turns into 7.
So Aigner's opening hand looks like a good one. He's got a good amount of counter magic and indeed ultimate price, which is able to hit all the creatures that
including the green ones
that might come out from Christopher Verula here. Verula going with the turn 2 Den Protector. Not necessarily something you see from very many decks in this format, but a perfectly fine play for this deck because it does win by beating down with creatures. And that first line, creatures with power less than Den Protector's power can't block it, very relevant when it comes to many matchups, just because you're winning by pumping creatures' power.
Yeah, the Titan Strength become immense aspect of this deck. It feels like this deck is where Den Protector's first sentence shines more than any other. Maybe not this matchup, but definitely this deck.
Yeah, I think Nicholas Aigner here has certainly drawn a hand with the tools to put his team through to the semi-finals here. It's all going to come down to how things play out from Christopher Verula's side and indeed what's on top of each player's deck. Fetch land and a swing here. Now Verula activating, Aigner activating his fetch land right now, suggesting that he's going to respond good and early to this Den Protector, potentially even using a removal spell
Oh yeah,
now.
I like that line. Just kill it. Don't take any damage. Your opponent doesn't play Hordling Outburst. Wow, okay, 2 in the sideboard. Maybe they came in. He doesn't play Dragon Fodder. You can just go 1-for-1 with him. And if Aigner's able to kill the creatures, then Verula's pump spells don't do anything. We don't actually know how many pump spells Verula has in his deck after sideboarding. Like, it could be that he's so nervous about Aigner's ability to kill his creatures that he doesn't have as many. And certainly something had to come out for the outpost sieges. And I see there's a Sarkhan in his hand right now. We've seen Arc Lightning come through as well, which is a sideboard card.
Yeah, Sarkhan potentially a good draw, but we know that Aigner sitting on a hand that includes Negate, which is the perfect answer.
Yeah, it's so hard. We've got, you know, one of these red-green decks. You know, you can sideboard. You can have cards that seem like they should be good against an opponent, but diluting your core strategy is also a cost.
So Aigner declining, I think he did draw Jace that turn, but declining to play it and keep up Dispel.
Wow. Dispel plus ultimate price.
And I guess that if he does cast a Dispel ultimate price or similar, then he's in a position where his Jace is a creature for the minimum possible space of time before he gets to flip it.
Good point.
Though to be fair, I guess most of the removal in Verula's deck can deal with Planeswalkers about as well as it can deal with creatures, given that it's all burn. Rather more land going on for than landfall creatures going on for Verula here, but he's not going to mind hitting land drops too much, given that there's a Sarkhan chilling out in his hand. The bit that he will mind, of course, the response is coming from Nicholas Aigner.
He's still got 3 Wooded Foothills in his hand. You see that Den Protector was the only creature in the draw, too.
Yeah, a little rough, that one. And now looks to be the time for Jace. Jace Vryn's Prodigy there, prompting responses all over the place. You know, if you can stop it, you probably should, and that's what Christopher Verula is going to be looking to do here. He has got an Arc Lightning in hand. We know that that may not work out as well for him as he might like.
He clears the negate, though. He clears a path for Sarkhan. That outpost siege off the top.
I believe so. So definitely in a position where overloading that negate is possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going to find out whether Verula's sideboard plan is actually good in this matchup. I mean, he's drawn a lot of his sideboard cards. He's got the mana to deploy them. And now we just get to find out, you know, can he actually win a mid-game card advantage grind against Esper Dragons?
It certainly feels like a little bit of a tall order. The Esper deck, one that's a little bit more naturally predisposed to draw cards. Like, that's his entire plan.
Verula's got more card drawing in his hand than Aigner does right now.
And the entire team's on either side looking on.
I mean, that hand has 3 sideboard cards.
We can see there as he was searching through that Become Immense still in. There's definitely still combo potential from this landfall deck.
Yeah, Temur Battle Rage is usually the first one you cut, since if your opponent's killing a creature with your Temur Battle Raging, you're just down 3 cards or so. Titan Strength and Temur Battle Rage usually get cut first. Become Immense is just so good on its own. It's just the rate is insane.
Yeah, not too many graveyard interactions beyond the Delve, which means that it's
Ignore the
safe
Jace,
enough.
go for the Sarkin is what Christopher Verula decides. Certainly the most efficient way for him to spend his mana here. Not going to work, though. Nicholas Aigner does not hesitate to crack his fetch land. Looks like this is going to be a negate.
Yeah, it takes the time to search through for a signed beta basic swamp. I can appreciate it. He does now have 2 basic lands in play, which means that any of his future Battle for Zendikar lands will come into play untapped, whether fetched or otherwise.
Also, crucially, his 2 basics combined to be over 40 years old.
Wow. Dragon Lord Ojutai sat in hand and a copy of Dig Through Time.
It was a good draw.
Means that all of a sudden card drawing potential for Nicholas Aigner pretty good. For Verula, I mean, there is still the potential for that outpost siege. We'll see how that works out.
Right. Aigner can just tap out for Dragon Lord Ojutai here, too. I mean, he's on 14. The opponent has no creatures. He's not going to do it. He's going to leave up Dig and Dispel and Ultimate Price.
Yeah, when you buy into playing Esper Dragons, you pretty much sign the card of, I'm going to play fairly conservatively and keep control of things. I also wonder whether or not once you're playing on a national team, there's a little bit more impetus to be the disciplined player rather than take any kind of risks.
Sure.
You're no longer just playing for yourself, you're playing for your entire country. Snapping Gnarlid comes down along with the 4th land, which means that I think we're likely to see the outpost siege here.
Agreed. It's no longer possible to Arc Lightning Jace. It'll just get activated as a response and turn into a Planeswalker. Outpost Siege was not good enough last game. Verula did manage to stick one on about turn 5, but could not keep up with Esper Dragons. Now, here we go again. Aigner is... He's going to Jace as a response. He might also dig as a response. Although I guess he's only got 2 blue mana, so he can't dig into a negate.
Yeah, I mean, this looks to be another resolver in terms of the outpost siege plan.
Yeah, that said, I mean, if you're Nicholas Aigner, you're flipping a Jace. You've got to dig through time in your hand. You can play Dragon Lord Ojutai and then start drawing 2 cards a turn. I think you just race the outpost siege and figure, all right, you can have 2 cards a turn. I can beat that.
Yeah, I mean, you have Ultimate Price, which is a safe way of dealing with any of the creatures that come down. So you're, in terms of the big combo, it's...
I mean, I think you Ultimate Price snapping a Gnarlid here. That way, on deck, you can tap out for Ojutai without feeling too vulnerable.
And it looks like that's the play, at least in terms of the removal. Also, conveniently leaving up a couple of blue for dig through time.
Mm-hmm.
Three out of the 4 copies of Ultimate Price in Nicholas Aigner's deck already cast now. Oh, I tell a lie. That's literally all of the ultimate prices, either exiled or in graveyard now for Aigner. Now, his graveyard is not a completely dead resource to him at this point.
No, there's a Jace there. Faltong Invocation was the first card he looked at. There's a bunch of lands. Is this Faltong Invocation and a land? I'm not sure there is another spell in there.
I mean, I guess you don't want to be drawing all of those lands anyway.
No, it's fine. I mean, the Faltong Invitations is an actively very good card.
Yeah, it certainly feels like a 2-for-1 when your opponent's pointing burn spells at your head.
I mean, Murderous Cut might have been better because you could potentially kill a haste creature after tapping 5 for Ojutai. But yeah, you just tap 5 for Ojutai here.
You do even have a Dispel in case there happens to be a cheeky instance
Yeah,
somewhere
good
in the
point.
mix.
Good point. A haste creature isn't going to combo kill you through a Dispel. Yeah, I like this. I like the way he's played this game a lot. He did not tap out for Ojutai. He figured, okay, I can do a dig and an ultimate price on turn 5. Turn 6, I can leave up Dispel to make sure, you know, it takes a lot of cards for Verula to do something threatening here, right? It's basically Swift Spear into Become Immense Battle Raid, something like that. But even that, Aigner's guarded against. All right, Outpost Siege found another Outpost Siege. So Verula can now go to 3 cards per turn, but I mean, doesn't Dragonlord Ojutai just kill him in 3 attacks now?
I mean, that would certainly be my plan if I was Nicholas Aigner.
I mean, I think these Outpost Sieges would line up a lot better against Esper Control like the way the Guatemalans have built it. But Esper Dragons just ends the game relatively quickly in the grand scheme of control decks.
Cons everywhere. Yeah, and extra copies of Faltong Invocation, just a huge boon to Aigner. He knows that the way that Verula wins is going to be by having creatures in play, and he's got a great way of stopping that and kind of neutering the effect of any damage that does sneak through.
I gotta say, it's been a lot of fun watching the Guatemalans play.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought that their gambit in the last round of the Swiss yesterday was super interesting. Take the draw that doesn't clinch the top 8 because we think we're going to lose this matchup. And that worked out. Now, not only do they get to the top 8, they get to go to the Pro Tour. I like the way I like the Dex lineups that they put together here, too. I mean, their Esper Control deck is a cool design. The Black-Red Dragons that doesn't need any fetch lands was a nice way to approach Unified Standard.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm looking forward to seeing these guys in Atlanta.
I think their run may be about to end, but it has been a fun one to watch. And the Spirit Award winners, too, right? Like them, Scotland, and Panama, I believe, were the...
No, it was...
Oh, it's
Dominican Republic was
sorry.
the other one.
The Jackets made me...
And
the Jackets have certainly turned a lot of eyes. They are a spirited bunch.
And I love the story that they're almost like the sort of the Jackets from the Masters in golf, that these jackets get passed from team to team.
Oh, they get handed down?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
You earn your jacket.
Very nice.
So here's Ataka's command coming from Christopher Verula. Nicholas Aigner. His life total shimming around a bit. Arishin Cleric kind of has something to say about the efficacy of burn. I mean, at that point, obviously, the Ataka's command did a good job of keeping it so that Aigner's life total could get completely out of control, but at the moment, I think that the main thing Verula has to worry about is there's a big old dragon coming for him.
Yep.
And indeed, his entire team. Now, Christopher Verula has 1 copy of Rending Volley in his deck. Cannot be countered.
Sure.
4 damage. If there's one card that could potentially get him back in this game, that would be the one for me.
I was having trouble coming up with one. You have found it. Rending Volley would indeed be very good here.
And conveniently, Verula found it before he showed up at the tournament, which means it's in his deck.
Yeah.
Does not have it in hand, but, you know, there's still a turn.
Which is 3 cards, thanks to the Outpost Sieges.
Well, yeah.
2 cards?
Yep.
Holds on to the Ataka's command, wary of there being more life gain from Aigner.
Like this? Like Foul Tongue Invocation targeting you even though you don't have any creatures? Aigner very interested in getting his life total back up to double digits, but Tarkus Command tries to stop it. Dispel stops the Tarkus Command.
Yeah, until that point, I think that Christopher Verula could reasonably have thought, well, maybe if I can burn them down to 8 to 5, then I'm drawing 3 cards. This could all happen. From 12, a little bit tougher.
Another Foul Tongue Invocation in Aigner's hand. Yeah, Verula needs to kill Ojutai. If he can kill Ojutai here, those Outpost Sieges have a chance to claw him into this game. But Ojutai's lethal next turn. He needs it right here.
It's a one of, just a single copy in the sideboard. I guess that, yeah, there's not a huge amount of other options for him at this point. I guess multiple burn spells off the top, given that there's now not the same level of counter magic protection.
Yeah, that's right. It's true. Let's chase. Yep. Go.
All right, 3 shots.
Den Protector was the draw phase.
Step 1. All the cards that you know about, they get cast. Now for some that you might not have seen. The most mysterious of morphs. What could it be?
Quick glance at the opposing graveyard. How much do I care about this?
Enough to kill off a Monastery's 5th Spear and gain 4 life.
Yeah, wants to kill the haste creature.
Yeah.
And the convenient dig is enough for the handshake. Big celebrations for Team Austria. Commiserations to Guatemala, but they've had a fantastic run and they will be headed to the Pro Tour.
Indeed. Great weekend for them. Great tournament.
Fantastic stuff. And of course, Sebastian Fiebietz not needing to play out his game 3 because 2 match wins, that's enough for Austria. They will be advancing to the semi-finals. So with 3 out of 4 quarterfinals left, Tim Willoughby here with Randy Buehler. We're going to be sticking with you for the very last one of those. Settle down, guys, back home. Scotland are going to be up against Italy soon enough. But before then, let's head to the news desk.
Yep, good luck, Randy, keeping Tim in check in that one. Italy against Scotland coming your way in just a few. But BDM, let's take a beat to just talk a little bit about Guatemala. They're out in the quarterfinals, but what a run, and they've just relentlessly beaten people by being better than them at Magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very exciting times for Guatemala Magic. Christopher Verula is certainly someone that when we go to Atlanta, he's on my list of players to watch. He's already got a 17th place finish on the Pro Tour. Now he captains the World Magic Cup team here to a top 8 run. I'm very excited about the state of Guatemala Magic, and I imagine there's a lot of players in Guatemala right now who are thinking, oh man, I want to get on the Guatemala national team next year.
Yeah, very, very impressive. The Guatemalan team showed a lot of skill this weekend. They brought great decks, a lot of spirit as well. Just an awesome performance, and it was great to see them make it this far in the tournament.
Yeah.
That said, on the other side of the table, Austria have a very proud history in team events, and they have said, you know what, we have finished twice at World Championships in 2nd place. You go back to New York in 2007 behind the Swiss team. You had David Reitbauer in 2009 and co. They have a real pedigree in this, and we talk about top 8 being such a margin and such a thrill to make it into the top 8, and you interviewed Stephen Murray of Scotland about, yes, but now we need to be calm. The Austrians, when they shook hands for their last round of pool play, they were just sitting there going, yep, good, That's a good start. That's the top 8. But we need to do better than second. So that means we have to just go and win.
Not a lot of room for error there.
Not a lot of room for error there. And they got through. Valentin Mckel with his 6 Grand Prix top 8s at claim victory over Jose Andres, and the match between Sebastian Fiebietz and Wilfredo Borquez not necessary in the end because Nicky Aigner took it down. So Austria advance to the semi-final, and they will play the winners of our 4th and final quarter-final. So this means Italy and Scotland. So let's get into this matchup, and we begin. Let's take a look at Team Italy. Who have they brought to the party? Well, they are led by Marco Camilluzzi. He is the leader of Team Italy. He's going to be playing Ataka Red. Then you see Andrea Mengucci with his 11 Pro Tours, 30 Grand Prix. He was king of the hill for 4,000 rounds in a row, BDM.
Yeah, and on road to his first Pro Tour top 8.
So those are the sort of big 2, but you've had a little chance to get to know William Pizzi and Francesco Befferro.
First of all, I want to, earlier Ian was talking about the spirit of the Guatemalan team. Look at these 4 pictures. This is like spirit incarnate.
Yeah.
I mean, are 4 people in this tournament having more fun than the Italian team?
Doubtful.
Yeah. William Pizzi and Francisco Befferro, I've been referring to them as the 2-headed giant. A little bit ironically because they're not very big guys, but also because they're playing together. Each one of them has been sitting out, alternating legs of this tournament as the coach. And so you often see the 2 of them sitting together, going through the match.
Okay. So let's take a look at what the Italians are bringing to play with here. Let's set them up for you. Seat A, well, here we are again. You've seen plenty of Dragon Lord Ochitais and Cinnamon Guards and Jace Finn's Prodigy. That 4-2-4 configuration, pretty much universal throughout the top 8. Mengucci in seat 1. Then in seat 2, seat B, you're going to see the Timur Megamorph. This is William Pizzi. So Bounding Krasis is in this deck, Heir of the Wilds, Savage Nux, and Collected Company, which we've seen with on an extraordinary number of occasions anecdotally this weekend. It has not been behaving itself on camera. Hopefully it does for Pizzi. And then seat C, this is Marco Camilluzzi, and Camilluzzi is going to be playing, well, here it is again, Ataka Red. All the big hits, they keep on coming. Team of Battle Rage become immense, comboing people out with the Ataka Red decks.
We haven't seen that though in the top happen in the top 8.
Yeah, we haven't at all. It's always like, what if he draws this? What if he draws that? But it hasn't happened yet. So.
Yeah, there's been an uncommon amount of defensive work done by Ataka Red decks. Yeah, usually shortly before they die.
That's right.
Yeah.
So not a deck that has a solid plan B.
Right. Yeah, that is fair. That is fair to say. All right. What about the Scots then? Let's take a look at Team Scotland. There they are, really close-knit team, as Scotland always is, anchored by Stephen Murray, second from the left. He's playing Jeskai. He's the team captain. On the left, you've got Grant Hislop. He's played in a Pro Tour before. A handful of Grand Prix for him. Martin Clement has a lot of pedigree, not just in Magic, but a bunch of other card games. He plays a lot of games, real gamer, Black Red Dragons for him. And Ray Doyle sits out as the coach. But, whenever we watch Scotland BDM, it doesn't matter who's holding the cards. They are such a unit. It's almost like they're all interchangeable, it seems.
Yeah, I talked to them before this round. They actually, in Scotland, there's a team championship where all the stores put forth a team to play similar formats to what we see here, and the national team is invited to compete at that.
That's awesome.
So that was really a let's get acquainted, because they said they were actually at a slight disadvantage in that tournament because they didn't know each other yet. They didn't know what to make of each other yet. Yeah. Where all these other teams are like 4 fast friends coming out of one store.
Yes.
And so it was a great experience for them, and they felt really like they came together at that tournament. And they're like, maybe after this tournament's over, we'll be like the Simpsons in the psychiatrist's office, hitting the button, shocking each other. Yeah. But right now we love each other, and we're all like aligned for one purpose here, which is to get our war paint on and.
For sure, they've been awesome to see this weekend.
Scotland.
All right, well, talking of alignment, let's see what the 3 decks are that Scotland are bringing to the party. We begin with Grant Hislop. He's in seat A, and this is Abzan Aggro. So, yes, you're going to see Planeswalkers in the form of Gideon and Sorin, but you're going to see Banner Fenzers, Den Protectors. You see Siege Rhino down there, Warden of the First Tree to kick things off. In the middle seat, Seat B, that's going to be Stephen Murray. And this is where their Jace Vryn's prodigies have gone. And you see a couple of exquisite firecraft over there. Stephen Murray, part of that amazing match yesterday to see Scotland through. And then Seat C, let's take a look. Black, Red, Dragons. All right, so those are the 3 decks, but the key is all about the matchup. So how do Italy and Scotland square off in these 3 seats, A, B, and C? Let's see what the matchups look like. All right, Ian, so we begin with Esper Dragons for Andrea Mengucci up against Abzan Agro for Grant Hislop. What goes on?
Very traditional matchup throughout the last year of Standard or so. I'd say it's very close to even. Abzan Agro can come out with some fast starts. It's a fairly resilient, aggressive deck, going a little bit bigger than the red decks. It's got some planeswalkers and the like. But Esper Dragons, obviously favored in the longer game. I'd give that match a square 50-50 probably.
All right. Now, the middle match, we've seen so many Ataka red decks in the field. We've seen so many Esper Dragon decks. You start seeing those same names over. But here we've got a very different matchup all round. Jeskai on the bottom for Scotland with Stephen Murray, and the Italians with Team Megamorph.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more of a question mark just because this Team Megamorph is a relatively new deck from this tournament, so I don't think anybody's quite got a great sense of how it matches up. That said, the Team Megamorph looks to me like it's situated to be good against blue reactive decks, and Jeskai, even though it's a 3 or 3+ color deck in general, sort of behaves like a blue deck in that it wants to be a little bit more reactive. It's got some counter spells and card draw, and so the Team Megamorph could be well positioned to take advantage of that with cards like Collected Company, Bounding Crassus, other flash creatures.
Yeah, this matchup was not good for Stephen Murray when they played in the Swiss, and Bounding Crassus was his nemesis.
Yeah, so I would put this in favor of the Team Megamorph, but with a little bit more error bar room than usual, right?
Team Megamorph was what came out of that super team. Brazil, Canada, Italy,
and USA.
Yes. And Team Megamorph wasn't as strong as they thought it would be in terms, I think, where they were predicting it, but it's shined against Jeskai so far.
Definitely.
Yes, Italy and Scotland have a slightly checkered history at this event because on the one hand, Italy dug Scotland a terrible hole by beating them in that second round of pool play. That was what put Scotland at 0-2. But when Scotland won their last match, they had to rely on Italy going to 3-0 to actually advance. Right, so Scotland sort of owe Italy one in both ways round. Our final matchup then, Marco Camiluzzi. This is where the traditional deck lies. Marco Camiluzzi is with Ataka Red. And Martin Clement, see there's no Esper down there for Scotland at all, so the Dragons deck is Black-Red.
Yeah, I'm going to give Ataka Red the favorite in game 1, at least here. It's just faster. It can kind of run over the slightly slower Black-Red Dragons deck. However, in games 2 and 3, I anticipate a Black-Red deck can bring in a ton of removal, cards like potentially Radiant Flames or Arc Lightning to sweep away multiple creatures. You've got Murderous Cut there to protect against combo. So I'm going to go probably slight favorite for the Ataka Red deck in game 1, but then maybe things shift a little bit post-sideboard.
BDM, we've talked a little bit about Martin Dang for Denmark. When he won his Grand Prix early in the year at Liverpool, people were like, oh, well done, another Grand Prix winner, and no one really knew a lot about him. In the same way, we had quite a lot of fun when Andrea Mengucci was running off all those wins at the Pro Tour as King of the Hill. But he has really matured into one of the finest players in Europe right now, and the 1-2 punch with Marco Camiluzzi is a lot of the reason that the Italians are here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that has 2 Pro Tour top 8 competitors, still, still in the mix here. And if they can get into the semifinals, they're going to be the only team that has that.
Yeah, so great stuff by them. And then you mentioned the super team that they were part of. They are the only ones left standing. Now, you would expect by the time you get to the top 8 that there would only be that. But it didn't really work out in as much as both USA and Canada had win and ins in the last round of day 1 and didn't make it in. How much of a surprise? It's clearly a surprise, but really big, or just, you know, it's just Magic?
I think it was a really big surprise to not see them come out of day one. I think, you know, where you have this very wide open field, you have the straight Swiss play that, you know, the pros are used to, you know, getting through on day one of an event. You know, it's not the vagaries of pool play. So, you know, I think very surprising that, you know, both of those teams, you know, the Canadian team with 2 Platinum Pros, you know, the American team with a Player of the Year and a Pro Tour champion, you know, quite shocking.
Yeah, and then the third member of that quad was Brazil, and in the end, they just couldn't dig themselves out of the O2 hole. They won their last round.
Right. They made it into pool play in day 2, but
right, and that was Palavida Damarosa. So back to our fourth quarterfinal, Italy against Scotland. We have to find a winner. The desk is not doing tremendously well at finding winners of these so far. We certainly we were 0 for 2 while you were in the boothie, and so hopefully you're improving things for us. So where do you see this one going?
I think objectively, the Italian team is probably the favorite here, but we've seen Scotland battle very well from the underdog position throughout the tournament. So I could go either way. I'm going to go with Italy, I guess.
I'm also on Team Italia here.
Let's be honest, if they were all playing 60 decks of basic lands, I'd still be telling you Scotland were going to win. So obviously Scotland are going to win.
So.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, so that improves their chances considerably. Sitting waiting for one of these two is Valentin Mckel and Sebastian Fiebietz and Nicky Aigner for Austria. Who do they want to see coming out of this match, I wonder? Just taking a look, we've got Bant Megamorph for Mckel, Mardu Midrange for Fiebietz, Esper Dragons for Aigner. So we'd see Bant Megamorph against Esper Dragons, Mardu Midrange against Team Megamorph, and then Esper Dragons against Ataka Red.
Well, I think Austria would actually rather face the Scottish team from the sense that they would be the team on the play. Italy is a higher seed than Australia. Italy's the 2nd seed, Australia was the 3rd seed, so if they face Italy, Austria would be on the draw. If they face Scotland, who came in as the 7th seed, then Austria would be on the play. And I think just objectively, I know talking to players out on the floor about who they were rooting for, I mean, talking to the Guatemalan team, talking to the Thai team, you know, they had been rooting for Japan.
Oh,
they wanted to face Japan in the semifinals.
Not often you're asking to go up against Yuya and Kenji,
right? But they're like, but we get to be on the play,
and
that's huge.
Well, let's see who makes it in to complete our semi-final lineup. Thailand will play France. Austria will play either Italy or Scotland. Who gets in? Let's find out.